The New Orleans Pelicans are elite. After having a couple of disappointing seasons, the Pelicans this year have looked fantastic. They got back a fully healthy Zion, other guys on their roster are stepping up, and at this point they just look like one of the more talented and one of just the better teams in the NBA in general. And at this point the Pelicans are playing so well, I would consider them legitimate championship contenders. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionative NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Ever since trading away Anthony Davis, the Pelicans have been one of the more talented young teams in the league. With their main two stars being Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, they also had a pretty deep roster besides that. But whenever you have those two guys at the top of your ticket, you're probably going to be a pretty talented team. Zion is a guy who has all the talent in the world, and in my opinion could potentially be a top 5 guy in the league in the future if he stays healthy. And Brandon Ingram is also an extremely talented player who I think could be a top 10 or maybe a top 15 player in the league. But although they did have a ton of talent, that talent didn't necessarily translate into success, as the Pelicans struggled to make the playoffs basically every single season besides last year. Now, a major reason for why the Pelicans have struggled over the past couple seasons is due to injuries to their best player in Zion Williamson. Now, whenever your best player goes down for the entire season or most of the season, of course that's going to have a significant effect because you're losing 20 to 25 points per game. But even besides that, there's also other effects. Another major negative factor to the rest of your team is going to be lack of consistency. And what I mean by that is if Zion Williamson is out, other players are going to get a bigger role and a bigger opportunity. So let's say, for example, one of the guys that gets a bigger opportunity starts to play really well. But now if Zion's healthy and back, that player is going to see their minutes get cut significantly. And with that minutes cut, that player could then lose some confidence and maybe then start to play poorly again. And then let's say in the future Zion once again goes down and that player gets a bigger opportunity again, maybe eventually he'll start to play well again, but he already lost his confidence from getting his minutes cut before, so it's going to be difficult to really consistently play well out there when your minutes are consistently changing. So I honestly think that played a major role in why the Pelicans have struggled over the past couple seasons. But after having a ton of promise early on, at least in most fans' opinions, the fact that they weren't playing well over the past couple years really made fans lose a lot of hope with the Pelicans. And even though they had a pretty solid year last year after picking up CJ McCollum, making the 8th seed in the Western Conference and making the playoffs, people didn't necessarily have the highest expectations for them going into this year. I feel like the general consensus of what people thought about the Pelicans was they would probably make the playoffs, or they should make the playoffs, probably anywhere from the 6th to the 10th seed in the Western Conference. But so far early on into the season, the Pelicans have far surpassed expectations, as currently on the year they have a 24-14 record and are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. Now of course this is an extremely impressive record, but even besides the record, when you watch them out there on the court, it's pretty clear that they're a very special and a very talented team. And in my opinion, I always thought they had the talent to do something similar to this, it's just they were never able to put it together. But the question is why? Why are the Pelicans playing so well this year when they had very similar talent in the past? Now obviously Zion is the main answer, but in my opinion there's a bunch of other reasons as well. Another significant reason, which I touched upon before, is the chemistry. Chemistry is extremely important, and on all of the good and especially the great teams, they always had great chemistry. But besides that chemistry, I think it really comes down to coaching. They obviously have a bunch of different individual talented scorers like CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and Brandon Ingram. But a major difference between this year and in years past is the fact that they're just running more crisp offensive sets. They're doing a great job at not only getting shots for their main guys, but also creating for others pretty easily. They're getting open 3-point jump shots, they're getting open dunks and layups, and overall they're just making their offense a lot more simple. And when you're able to get more open looks, you're probably going to be more efficient out there, and when you're efficient out there, that also puts less pressure on your defense. And that brings me into another reason why I think the Pelicans are playing so well this year, and that's their defense. In years past, the Pelicans have certainly not been known as one of the better defensive teams in the NBA, but at this point the Pelicans are actually playing pretty well defensively. The Pelicans are doing a really nice job at playing team defense. They also have a bunch of great individual defenders that really help them out. But overall, I think the fact that they're playing really good defense helps out their offense significantly, but also the fact that they're playing really good offense helps out their defense significantly because it puts less pressure on them. So I certainly think coaching is a major difference between this year and in years past. Now, obviously the addition of CJ McCollum is huge, but overall I do think the talent level is relatively similar this year compared to in years past. But now the question is, what are my expectations for the Pelicans for the rest of this season? Well, in my opinion, I think the Pelicans are legit. I think they're going to continue to play similarly to the way they're playing so far, and by the end of the season, I would expect them to be a top 4 seed in the West. Now, in terms of playoff success, I would expect the Pelicans to make it past the first round, but I wouldn't expect them to do much more than that. Now, based upon the record and how they're playing, they should make it farther than that, but in terms of my expectations, based upon how young of a team they are and how little experience they do have, I wouldn't expect them to make it past the second round, although I think they should. But in terms of my long-term expectations within the next 5 seasons or so, I would honestly expect the Pelicans to win a championship. Now at this point that might sound crazy to say, but considering how much talent that they do have, and also considering that 5 seasons is actually a really long time, I do think it's relatively fair to say that the Pelicans need to win a championship within those next 5 seasons or it is a failure. Whenever you have a guy like Zion Williamson on your team, which I've touched upon before, I think he could be a top 5 player in the league, while also having a guy like Brandon Ingram who could be a top 15 player in the league. I don't think expecting a team like that to win a championship within the next 5 or 6 seasons is really all that much. And I honestly think it's relatively fair. So that would certainly be my expectations for them within the next 5 or 6 seasons. Now, of course, whenever you have Zion Williamson on your team, there's always going to be a concern of injuries going forward for the rest of this season, but also going forward long term. And although those injuries would play a significant role throughout the rest of this season if he were to get injured this year, knock on wood he doesn't, but it would also play a significant role going forward long term as well, I do think it is encouraging to see the way he's been playing so far, and the fact that he has been staying relatively healthy this year. If Zion could figure out a way to take some rest games here and there, but basically play fully healthy throughout the most of the regular season, as well as especially come down to playoff time, and if he could play anywhere from 65 to 70 games a year, I think that would be perfect for him. I think just based upon his build, you can't expect him to play 82 games every single season, but if he was able to play anywhere from 65 to 70 games and be healthy in the playoffs, I think that would be fine. The Pelicans at that point would get all the help they need to be good during the regular season, but also once it comes down to playoff time, they would have their best player available. So if Zion's able to do that throughout the rest of his career, and especially during this season, I do think he'll be a-okay going forward. But of course, at this point, based upon his injury history, it is a big what if. But overall, I am extremely excited to see what the Pelicans are able to do throughout the rest of this season, but also in the future. I think they're an extremely talented team. I think they have great top-end talent. I think they have pretty good depth. I think they have a ton of potential. The question would be at this point is, could they fulfill their potential? So far this season they are. Could they continue with this? But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening with the Pelicans. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Pelicans have a chance to be great, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these 2 videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out, guys.